As Guyana sits on the economic and political crossroads, we speak to the nation's opinion leaders and decision makers, their views on the challenges the country faces.
It's 11 for international. Where we join us, you ask you to explain and some of the challenges it faces. We will also be taking a look at what's happening in the Guyana Teachers Union-led strike action. I'm your host, Marvin Williams. Nation Watch is a production of the People's National Congress Reform. And today I'm joined by the General Secretary of the Guyana Trades Union Congress, Mr. Lincoln Lewis. Comrade Lincoln Lewis, welcome to Nation Watch.
Thank you, Marvin.
Lincoln, we are at a very troubling time in the history of this country. During the period 1992 to 2015, the whole question of collective bargaining died and induced death. And Mr. Jagdeo, to his credit, in the National Assembly, admitted that it returned under the coalition administration when he said on the record in the National Assembly that he was happy that bargaining has run. Troubling times ahead. The Guyana Teachers Union started an industrial action last Monday. There was strike action all across the country for 5 consecutive days. There were public demonstrations all across the country during those striking exercises. The strike is expected to continue tomorrow, Monday. The GPSU and indeed the GTUC have come out in support of the Guyana Teachers Union, sending letters of support. For its part, the government has made it clear that this strike is racist and that it is political. So, I apologize for that. So, I repeat, the government for its part says that the strike is racist and political. For their part, the teachers contend that this has nothing to do with race, this has nothing to do with politics, this has to do with their bread and butter issues. From your standpoint as a labor leader, Mr. Lewis, share with us your thoughts on the GTU strike 2024.
Thank you for inviting me to talk about this issue, because it's an issue that not only impacts on the Guyana Teachers Union, but it's an issue that has implication for the entire English-speaking Caribbean. The labor movement in general here and the Caribbean labor movement. What is happening here is that the CARICOM Charter to society speaks to collective bargaining. Constitution of this country speaks to collective bargaining. The what you call it, the Trade Union Recognition Law 23(1) speaks to specifically that when a union acquires a certificate of recognition, the employee under 23(1) of that law says very clearly that both parties will have to negotiate in good faith. In this specific case, is the government is who is the custodian of the law, as also the employer, and the government has decided that they're not going to engage with the trade union for reasons more than one. You'll find that the government vacillates, finding another reason every other day. The last reason I heard was the one which says that the union leadership is corrupt, and that I understand came from the vice president.
Or was it the general secretary of the PPP?
I don't know which role he plays, but he confuses people at times. But he's consistent about one thing: that if he's saying that we are not to engage corrupt leaders, then I will advise that no organization should engage him. Because if corruption is going to be the yardstick used for engagement by the government, government engaging anybody outside of the government, then vice versa, that yardstick must go across the board. What he's virtually saying that we should not engage him, right? Let me tell you this. He's out of order, totally out of order. This issue is not about the leadership of the GTU. It's no way near to the leadership. This issue is about the law, 23(1) of the Trade Union Recognition Law, that you have to negotiate. The red herrings that he's coming with about the union this and the union that and the one that was not knitted and so on, that's not his business. That is the business for the members of the union. You hear what I'm saying? It is for the members of the union, not even the people who are paying agency shop fee. We have to get this thing in these people thick skull. That this is the trade union matter, internal matter, and this government, this country signed on to the ILO conventions 98 and 87 and 98, which talks about freedom of association and right of color. The first two ILO conventions that were signed in 1966, just after we got independence. We did that. And it talks about the government cannot interfere into the internal affair of the trade union, neither the employers' organization. And the employers' organization can't get involved in their affair. But as a citizen, every government, we have a right to question because it's our tax dollars. We are the citizens. Every citizen in this country has a right to question what this government does. They don't want that. They don't want that. We have to start now. We have to get this matter very clear. This is about right to collective bargaining. This is not about 5% or 6%. This is about collective bargaining. And if he's going to talk about if he wants a discussion on the question of the management of the organization, then there is no. There's out of eating. You ain't paying anything. I see you arguing that they give to the GTU $5 million when you go. Let me tell you what the $5 million. Let me tell you the viewership about this $5,000, $5 million. Let me tell you. When the money is given, you have to prepare an account specifically about that money and send to the government before you get it the next year. This man is so lying. I want to tell you something. Even if the truth fall on Jack your head or your foot or your lap, you can't recognize it. The man is he lies all the time. He will tell you that Skeldon Estate, where he spent $200+ million US dollars, right? Say you're going to rehab and how much money you're going to bring. He's going to tell you that Skeldon walking. Even if guys so-called make 250,000 tons per year, or 200 tons per year of sugar, you know what they're going to do? Even oh, he's so lie, he will go and tell you it's 600,000. You got to understand the animal you're dealing with.
I want to bring a little bit of history into this conversation.
Yes.
The People's Progressive Party and the People's National Congress were born out of the trade union movement.
Yeah.
People like Critchlow, Jagan, Burnham, Ashton Chase, and company, they fought for the things that you speak about.
Yeah.
That find themselves enshrined in the labor laws, the right to collective bargaining, and so on. But the successors to Dr. Jagan, particularly Mr. Jagdeo, either lost their way or deliberately branched off on a separate road. In 2009, in the month of May, April or May, somewhere around there, I think it was May, the Essential Services Strike Control Bill, now Act, was passed in the National Assembly. Jagdeo was president. The PNCR One Guyana, yes, One Guyana, the People's National Congress Reform One Guyana, which was the parliamentary list, asked for a division of the House through its chief whip, Mr. E. Lance Carberry. The division proved that the PNCR 1G voted against this legislation. 20 members were present, 20 members voted against it. The PPP voted, 31 members voted for passage of this legislation. Now, this legislation provides for the following to be considered essential service providers, and therefore they are prevented from striking unless a whole host of conditions are satisfied. And viewers, this is for your information particularly. Any service provided by the Transport and Harbors Department or Maritime Authority can't strike unless you go through the mill. Any service related to drainage and irrigation, any cemetery scavenging or solid waste services of a municipality, the marketing and distribution services of all petroleum and allied products. And I believe that in addition to that, there were the following: any dockage, wharfage, discharging, loading or unloading of vessels or related services, any direct or indirect production, storage, distribution, sale, delivery, or supply of potable water. The GWI can't strike, gotta go through the mill. Gas stations, petroleum, can't strike, gotta go through the mill. Any direct or indirect generation, transmission of sale and supply of electricity, GPL. Any service essential to the continued provision of telecommunications, GTT, Digicel. Any healthcare or related service operated by the Georgetown Public Hospital Board, any public corporation established under the Public Corporations Act of 1988, the public hospital, and the signalers at the airport, air traffic controllers, among others. These were identified specifically in the legislation as essential services. This act cripples the trade union movement of this country in the view of many. What say you in that regard?
What it did specifically is to make sure that they can frustrate a number of workers in a number of agencies. Let me tell you what. The 1999 strike of the public servants, they believe, they have set out from then that never again you must have
yes, this followed that strike.
Yes,
this was retaliatory to that strike.
So if you observe the 1999 strike, where we had the major protests on the road, the people who were virtually at the front of the strike were a number of nurses.
Yes.
They mean that the nurses must not come out again. Right? and they had a number of other agencies. On it. PPP is an organization who always develop draconian laws. That's the reason why the 1963 strike with the, what you call it, the Labor Relation Bill of the 1960s. That is what it caused. They are the people, and what they are the people who caused that strike. They were prepared not to talk, not to budge. They had the budget issue and you had the labor relation. Those were the two matters that were being discussed. Now again, in 1999, is the reluctance or the defiance. Now is the reluctance to talk with the union. And that what caused the teachers to be enrolled. I'm just telling you that these people are good at creating the atmosphere for creating the atmosphere for strikes to take place. That is how they operate at all times.
We will get to the reason for that, but I want to delve more into this thing. I'm looking here at Ghana Chronicle article of October 4, 2020. Mm-hmm. It's captioned, Labor Consultant Points to Essential Services Act. AG describes politically instigated nurses' strike as inhumane. Again, this trend of labeling strikes political seems to be a kind of a sweet soundbite for the PPP.
It's a natural thing. But what they fail to say, that the decisions not to pay, not to give the teachers what we call personal protective gears, was a political decision. It is not the board, it's the minister who decide what must happen. The PPP operate in such a people government operating so that everything has go to the minister or if possible to Jack Dewey. Everything has to go. That is how they operate. They micromanage everything. And a number of people who tell you that, who will come publicly and say it's not so, quietly they will tell you that they don't make decisions. The decisions are made at Freedom House.
But Lincoln, it is evident that this legislation that I referred to, the identification of these essential services that I spoke to, mm-hmm. This is being used to disable and perhaps even to intimidate labor leaders. Look, I go back to this article. And this is Mr. Patrick Yard, and what the reporter is saying here relates to Patrick Yard and the nurses' strike of 2020. Yard on Thursday said the union is looking for a positive response from the minister by October 6th. Mm. If not, it will begin to mobilize and support countrywide protest action. It quotes him as saying, unless these concerns are addressed, the union will not only support the nurses' protest action, but will work towards it being intensified. Mm. Now, I don't know that that ever happened. Mm. What I know is that the nurses' strike was deemed illegitimate by the administration. They were threatened with a whole set of sanctions. They lost income, approached the High Court, and the High Court said that they were unjustly denied their income and ordered that the income be reinstated. Yeah. But here is Nandlal, the Attorney General, and let's see what he says. The article goes on, citing the law in a letter sent to Yard, Nandlal explained that the Essential Services Arbitration Act, Chapter 5401, provides for settlement of dispute in public utility undertakings in certain services and prohibits strikes and lockout in such undertakings or services.
You don't prohibit striking.
No, but hold on. I know it doesn't.
Oh, good.
But it's a procedure and what flows within those procedures that causes the problem. Mm. Now, here is where Nandlal goes on to say some very interesting things according to this article. However, unless the protest action ceases immediately and the procedures outlined by the law are invoked, the government will have no alternative but to consider certain options, including but not limited to the institution of criminal charges, dismissals, termination of contracts of employment, suspension of collective labor agreements with the GPSU, and, does this sound familiar? The suspension of the deduction of union dues for and on behalf of the union. This is union busting.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does this impact? And it's obviously intimidating too, because there are threats of criminal action and termination of contracts of employment and so on. How does this affect the labor movement in this country, and how does this relate to the labor movement in the wider Caribbean region and how they're allowed to function?
Let me put it this way on this issue. What did Landalal said then? Suddenly, similarly, it's the same thing we're seeing here now. Remember, one of the major things that they said is
Union dues.
Union dues.
And that salaries will be deducted.
Yeah, one of the things that they don't understand, because they have power that they can do anything. It is not a union that they're deducting the dues for. They are deducting the dues on behalf of the worker who have given them an authorization.
Yes.
What need to be done is workers got to start now carrying them to court and fight them. They have been empowered over the years to do these type of things because we sat down, this society sat down and allowed these guys to violate laws, transgress rights, and we have not been rallying around each other to make sure that we fight as a collective. When these guys have been taking up, together all of them have been taking up a position using our resources to subjugate us in the society. The man who sells cane juice, whatever happened to the worker who working on the wharf, it impacts on his business. And we don't see that. If we begin to see it that way and understand that the trade union impact, let me give them specifically for the trade union. The trade union has what we call a social, a moral responsibility to the community within which it operates. If an employee, a man who's employed at John Finance, if he is going into a community where there's no lights, broken roads, potholes, and these type of things, and the light cut in half and all these type of things, when he gets back to work, he can't perform at his optimum. Can't. So we have that responsibility to make sure that we talk about those things in the community. And in like manner, the people in the community has a responsibility to work with us as a trade.
I want to ask you a question that I'm sure is on the minds of many Guyanese.
Yeah.
Collective bargaining, negotiations, basic communication, they're all dependent on certain conditions being present.
Yeah.
One is reasonableness. The government contends through the president that teachers should be patient with it and infers therein that the union is unreasonable by going to where it's at. The General Secretary and Second Vice President, General Secretary PPP and Second Vice President of Guyana, says that the government cannot afford to pay increases at this time. The president and his second vice president do not seem to be on the same page in that particular regard, and in some other areas as well. Now, Do you believe that the unions, the labor movement generally in this country is reasonably disposed to engagement with the government? The government doesn't seem to believe that.
Let me say to you that reasonableness can be very subjective, but let me take it for what it is. When the previous government upped the salary level, Jagdio, Orfanali, and your group of them said it's unreasonable. But when they came to power, rather than reversing that, they add on to what they inherited. You know, each minister get more than, since they come to power, each minister get more than, as emoluments and so on have been increased by more than $300,000, more than $300,000 per month, right? You telling me 300,000 is just around what another assistant master in a school getting paid. 2 assistant masters can be paid with 300,000 per month. You check on what we're talking about. Check it out. What we're talking about. And you telling me that the workers, the teachers are unfair. The teachers have to wait. But you take you on from the first day, you take you on up, you take you on. So wait, is it only you can, is only the minister can got to face his shop? These people ain't gotta go. These guys believe that people in this country is a personal property and we are the subjects. Don't tell people they gotta wait. You are the servants, not we the servants, not the workers, the servants of this country. You serving us. And until such time that we come to terms as the people to understand and say to these guys that they gotta stop this nonsense. Look, you have had quite recently, last year, you have had Justice Kissoon in the environmental issue with Exxon. He made a ruling. The government, the government challenged it in the court. It was not Exxon that challenged it, it's the government leader that challenged it. While they're challenging to protect that for Exxon, what we are getting from the oil and gas right now, what we are getting from oil and gas, they decide that we ought not to get what we asked for. We asking that you must have cash grants to every household in this country. But they have decided they're not going to give it to you. This is beyond. So everything we must wait when they want to give it? Man, rubbish, man. We have to tell these people where to get off, man. I want to tell you something. You see those drug criminal law? Let me tell them. Let me put them on notice. It was Thursday last that we engaged the lawyers. We're starting with them now with the court. You see them, this one, they'll tell you about where they take the, what you call it, the fire.
Yeah.
The Constitution says very clear that as you're a worker, you can join the union. If a law is in conflict with the
to the extent that it is
with the Constitution,
not.
yes, we are going to go to court. So let me fight.
So the Constitution categorizes firefighters and prison service officers as workers. And the subsidiary legislation says they're not to be considered workers for the purpose
and
of
that is the PPP, is them put it inside there, And you know what they did? Because they want to get the PSU out, because the PSU used to represent both fire and prison.
Well, I asked the question earlier, and I don't know if I didn't put it to you clearly or whether you missed it in the jumble of the conversation, but are workers expected, or should workers expect, I beg your pardon, that the support of the GPSU and the GTUC for the teachers union strike will go beyond words. And if that is going to be the case, what kind of action are you looking at, and what kind of timelines may you have in mind?
I want to tell you that the strike is dependent on how far the workers or the teachers union would like to take it. We not stand in the way as to the distance they want to go. We are not supporting the teachers union. I know the GPSU and the TUC. We are walking alongside them. Where the strike ends, where this matter goes, I do not know.
But collective bargaining, the absence of collective bargaining, affects labor across the board. The 6.5% wage increase, some economists say is indexed below the rate of inflation that they calculated. Government says 2%. Other economists suggest 7% for inflation. Now, the cost of living continues to rise. People continue to be affected. The teachers have been threatened with salary cuts for the periods of time that they're on the engaged in strike action. So these issues affect not only teachers, it affects every worker in the public service. And the question really is perhaps even bigger than what the teachers want in terms of the extent to which their action goes. It may be a question that extends beyond the Guyana Teachers Union and into other workers' unions as well.
I will want to tell you something, Morgan. I like your question, but let me point out to you. In this specific case, the strike has started with the teachers union. We will walk with the teachers union wherever they want to. And I want to say to you further, that in my deliberation with them, I believe the leadership is resolute on this issue. This issue, when you made reference about the 6.5% that was paid, they are not looking at the 6.5% because they don't believe any numbers that are being produced by this government. Tell me the national census. When last you get the right numbers? When last you get numbers? Numbers.
I don't think the 2012 numbers have been released yet.
Yeah, the numbers, when it comes to using numbers for development in this country, it is the PPP don't give you the true figures. So I want to, let me reiterate our position that we will, this matter, we have a long way to go. And we have a long way to go because we will be alongside with the GPS, the GTU, both the GPSU and the Guyana Union Congress. We've been talking. We do not want to, at this juncture, to give any further information about where we're going. But just to see that we are encouraged by the resoluteness of the leadership of the Guyana Teachers Union.
I respect your position on disclosure in this matter, but I want to take you back again. There's a video clip that is being frequently played around this time. In fact, there are two clips. I'm sorry I didn't ask my operator to cue them up. But in one clip, Mr. Ali, in opposition, decries the government of the day and asks the question whether nurses, teachers, and police officers were not important in the whole scheme of things. And he was speaking of salary increases. During that term, I believe public sector workers benefited from somewhere in the region of 76% in salary increases over 4 years. The other clip is one of Mr. Jagdeo celebrating Mr. Granger's return to collective bargaining and urging the public service union to demand no less than 50% salary and wage increase. More recently, the same Mr. Jagdeo at the press conference said that between 2015 and now, teachers received 50% salary increase. So he seems to be, on the one hand, demanding that the previous administration does a particular thing. That administration exceeds his expectations. And now, because of the People's Progressive Party's failure in that same regard, he piggybacks on Granger's accomplishments to say that the teachers have benefited. How do you see this kind of political engineering when it comes to workers' rights?
It is the behavior of the PPP. It's a behavior pattern of the PPP. They never, they don't care, that by the click of the mouse now, you can retrieve what was said 2 years ago. They just play to the gallery. They never expected that people would remember that. And they don't care, they don't even care if you remember. It is part of the behavior of the PPP. They don't believe in what they say. Mr. Jagdeo knows that he lies, and he will continue to lie. I want to tell you that. I don't believe that we can play it, and I believe it's for the public out there to know the animals we are dealing with. And why don't we believe that they care what we do? They will continue tomorrow to do the same damn thing. That is Jagdeo and team.
And of course, there are the apologists who will show up in our comment section to ask for statements of polls.
Let me point out to you. I want to tell you. I want you to understand something. Let me tell you something. The court can say what they want to say about the question of the last election. Let me tell you something. I am simple. I understand politics. Let me tell you what. I understand very clear, and let me make it very clear to everybody that I believe that the government was installed. I believe they were politically installed for political purposes. I believe that the powers that be were not comfortable with the previous government. It is not, when you can have a situation where you have ballot boxes without stating to poll and all these type of things, and you tell me that it's valid. Where you believe I do? Where you believe I come from?
Well,
and you accepting that and telling me said this election were free and fair?
Lincoln,
well, let me tell you, Morgan. Let me make this one. Don't ever believe what these people say. You see that oil out there? Let me tell you what I. There are people who believe that the oil is within the boundaries of this country, but they don't believe that the oil belongs to Ghanaians. And I don't believe that Jagdeo believe. He and his colleagues, they believe that the oil belongs to the people of this country, and we must get a share in it.
I ordinarily don't get distracted, but there are times, I like to focus on what we're about to discuss, but when you see these facts are put out there, there's a certain group that is perhaps paid to go in our comment section and write nonsense about statements of poll. Let me tell you specifically you are asked by a court of law. And it was the People's Progressive Party who claimed to have won that election.
1997.
And that was Mrs. Janet Jagan running for president in 1997, who, when served with a writ, tossed it over her shoulder and broke down the rule of law principle and its importance in this country. The People's Progressive Party's Janet Jagan did that. And in the end, it was Justice Claudette Singh who found that the elections of 1997 were null, void, and of no legal consequence, having regard to the fact that they were unconstitutionally run. And therefore, she vitiated those elections. You know what that meant? Parliament had to go and approve everything that Janet Jagan did unlawfully while she was unlawfully the president. The only other election for which there's credible evidence of rigging is the election of 2020, when countless ballot boxes were found without official documents in them, when an elections commission chairman set them aside. They were not going to deal with them, set them aside and put the incumbents at peace that they were not going to look at them. And then the next morning, they were included in the count. Thousands of ballots. So don't come here talking nonsense about statements of poll. Get your facts right and speak through a clean mouth. Not with forked tongues. Not with forked tongues. No, I'm not going back there. I'm done with that, Lincoln. I want to come to the question of the availability of money to solve this problem of the Guyana Teachers Union strike. The strike is for the right of collective bargaining to be recognized. It doesn't take rocket science for any government to do that. Right? It doesn't call for money to do that. It calls for political will and respect for the labor movement in this country to do that. The second side of this strike has to do with the insufficiency of the salaries and wages of teachers and workers across the country. Now, the parliamentary opposition has made it clear that money is available in this budget. The parliamentary opposition at the recent press conference identified where this money could be found. Chartered accountant Christopher Ram, when asked about this position, said that he does not believe in financial engineering. He believes that the government should go back to the National Assembly, as it has done on multiple occasions since it has been in government, and ask the National Assembly of the Parliament of Guyana for supplementary funding, which is available from oil revenues, to pay workers a living wage. I'm not quoting Ram here, I'm just paraphrasing. The parliamentary opposition has said very clearly that if the government is to go back to the National Assembly for supplementary budgetary resources to make available to the workers of this country a livable wage, it will support the government in that regard. Of Guyana on this.
I believe in what Ram saying. The money is there. Before I come in today, there were people giving me the numbers, and they're saying to me that the money is there. We can get the money. Our wealth at this time is of such that it is not significant from what we are picking up in oil and gas. It is not a significant amount of what we are picking up from oil and gas right now. They believe that approximately a week and a half of what we pick up can do it can do miracle for meeting the demands of the teachers and the public service.
This thing about, see, let's look at budget last year, 2023. A sum of money was there hidden someplace in the estimates. And then, as the PPP would usually do, come December on the approach to Christmas, give out some retroactive small numbers to the workers and so on. Should there not be a structured form of engagement that makes increases not only predictable but known well beforehand, that the expectations?
Let me tell you what, in sensible countries where we have sensible leaders, you look for like a 3-year agreement with the public sector unions. And that 3-year agreement, you will able to predict, based on your good development, what you will have to pay to your public employees. So it's not something where the negotiation must be every year. It can be for 3 years, it can be for 4 years, it can be for 5 years.
But it must be.
Yes, but what happens here is that they don't want to negotiate. They want to give the impression, that they're giving the people something. The union don't matter. Remember, they said you had 50-something or 40-something or 50-something items in the proposal.
Right.
And they
said 27, they said.
Satisfied someone. But you never negotiated. What you did is that if you had a list, you're asking for 7 uniforms or 5 uniforms for things. Let me use that an example. What they say, look, you want 5? I don't give you 4. Or I don't give you 3.
Take it or leave it.
And that's it. The question here, you don't have a right to sit down. What I say, we are not equals, you know. We are the kings and the lords. That's what the government saying. They are the kings and the lords, and they will determine what they will give to the plebs, and that is what they give, and that is what created the problem, and that is what caused the strike of 1999, and that is what caused it. And let me tell you something. 1999, one Jagdeo tell people.
Not one black cent more.
Remember 1990, you know what Jagdeo said? I don't have to walk and tell you. Yeah, they will tell you, we'll verify it. You know what he said? He has an agreement with the IMF and the World Bank and them, the structural adjustment agreement. And that cannot disturb it. So you have to take away, right? We had a strike, we had an arbitration, and the arbitrators give an increase far outside of what the agreement said, and they went right back to the IMF and the World Bank and said, "This is it," and the World Bank and World Bank said, "Let me tell you something. IMF and World Bank now run the country. The people run the country, and the power that they get is the people's power. And the time has come where we got to start examining how we are going to use the people's power for the benefit of the people." Let me make this point, you know, I'm moving. The PPP is the greatest enemy to this society, to this country. They are the problem. They are not the solution. They create problems. They don't solve problems. And simply look at it this way. They create the problem. The people strike, but they decide they're not going to talk with the union. So you don't want to resolve the problem. So I'm telling you that they are the problem, and they must be told on no uncertain term that they are the problem. And as you talk with unionists right now around me, they see them. That's how the unions see them as problems, and something has to be done.
So the People's Progressive Party promised in their campaign, they're good at saying that, oh, we kept this campaign promise and the other. And we know that those promises that they boast about keeping or having kept have to do with specifically with their constituents. But these are issues that touch and concern every citizen that I'm raising here with you now. 50% increase in old age pensions was promised. That promise has not been honored. $3,000 categorized by Kemraj Ramstan as 3 slices of pumpkin is what the increase was. NIS old age benefit. There is oil revenue, yet the 6.5% increase from the National Insurance Board is only applicable to those persons earning minimum pension. Persons earning above minimum pension are not benefiting from this 6.5% increase, as they ought to. It means, therefore, that a number of persons earning just over minimum pension will eventually be caught up with by those who now earn minimum pension, because they will get the increase and the others would not. 50% salary increases to public service workers. Promise not kept. Is this treatment of the working class in this country by the People's Progressive Party as a result of loss of memory from what happened on the campaign trail to now, or is it blatant disrespect by the People's Progressive Party, which newly made false promises to the people of this country and refused to keep them, even in the face of support from the opposition and the availability of the resources with which to keep those promises?
Morgan, we were talking a little while ago, and I made a point that it is not about the will of the people to do something. These guys basically see the society as a group of people who they can always throw trinkets to. They always say to you, this is what you must have. You don't have to go very far to remember that when the public service, when the teachers union was talking, about collective bargaining, no other person but the president invited teachers to State House to ask them what they would like to have, and say that he's consulting. These guys don't have regard for institutions and people. All that they're concerned about is that when election time comes, they can line them up somewhere and they can put an X in the ballot for them. That's all they're concerned about. We have to look at this thing differently and treat with these people differently. We can't just sit back. We can't just sit back and just remember that they say it. We got to cause them to do something. And that's the point I want to make. That we have reached the point where I want to say this, that the teachers who are outside here need the help of every citizen in this country. I'm calling on the people, or the housewives, the husbands, the employees in the other agency, even if it's a bottle of water, carry it and make your contribution. For my labor leaders, my colleagues in the labor movement, come stand up for half an hour, pick up a placard, and let us work with these people. Your solidarity is important. I heard people asking, which I asking this question even on the air, they're asking, when the other workers coming out? Yes. Don't ask when the workers coming. Don't only ask about them. What I want to ask you, you consider what contribution you can make. Don't wait for the workers. All of us are involved here, and unless we get victory, all of us will be consumed. We have to approach this thing differently. We have to hold hands against a repressive regime. This regime don't care. This regime don't care. What happened with people? As long as they and the courts exist, so be it. We have to take a strong, we have to stand up, raise up our backs. And we can only do it, as they said, one, don't just build a dam. You don't have to bring You don't have to bring a $10,000. You can bring a $500. You can bring a $200. You can bring a bottle of water. You can bring a bag of, you can bring a couple pints of peas. You can bring a couple pints of rice. Okay. This thing, we have to sustain the teacher struggle. Because this struggle is important to everyone in this society, not only the trade union movement. I want to implore upon those people who listening to Jack Dio and his rhetoric and want to support him. When they finish with you, when they finish with the teachers, and you open your mouth, they're going to deal with you. That's the level of arrogance. You see last week or before last, the guy, talk to him.
There were more instances.
Yeah, that man is not the man who makes the decision, but to satisfy the community, it demonizes that man.
Mostly for
You strip that man.
Mostly for shifting blame.
Right?
From
Yes, moving from their incompetence right on to, because I'm sure if you put on 12 bulbs at Beirut, GPL gotta get permission from them to do so.
It can be done in 24 hours.
Okay? All these type of things that you see, we talked to Jerry over earlier. You see the clip? Well, if Jerry is a man who is in the upper echelons of this government, and he was so contemptuous, you see the contempt in the man, right? I want to tell you something. What is? God know you know why I never up in them areas, because no president, no prime minister, no minister will dare talk to me like that. What I've never got from my father, I'm not going to tolerate it from anybody. I'm telling you, I don't care who you are. You understand me? You have to respect yourself first. If you can't respect yourself, you gotta start. You understand me? I'll cause you to respect. To bring something.
Final words from Lincoln Lewis, General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress of Ghana. Mr. Lewis, I want to thank you very much for joining me on Nation Watch and bringing some of your perspectives to the issue at hand regarding the labor movement in Ghana and the ongoing Ghana Teachers Union strike and related matters. Thank you very much for joining me, sir.
Thank you.
Comrade, I should say. I apologize. I get it wrong all the time. To our viewers, I'd like to thank you for joining us from wherever you're joining us and staying the course of Nation Watch. And to those who made valuable comments in our comment section, I thank you very much as well. And for those who are misled and may have made comments not as complimentary or not as wise, we also thank you for watching the program. We will see you again next time, right here, Nation Watch. Until then.
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. Can I tell one word about the story which you will see?
Yes, please.
This is the story about a child who grew up, became famous artist, and forgot his parents. I wish nobody forget their parents, please.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
It's a sad story.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Universe, all the planets,